everyone. Welcome to this transmission. Just turning in the volume, just not to be too loud. Okay. Well, yeah, I think that will do. Okay, great. Well, hi everyone. I am very excited to be sharing today with you this live transmission talking about the Ark of Isis. It is a topic, a subject that has inspired me ever since I started this path of awakening, of remembrance, and that it was a huge intimate connection that I started to have not only with the ancient civilizations in general, or only with the Egyptian, yet also with the Neteru, and mainly Isis. I won't say that I also was very inspired by, for instance, Hathor or Osiris, of course, and Horus and so forth. Nevertheless, this intimate connection that I have with everything related to the Ark of Isis goes beyond the divine feminine, and you will see what I'm talking about, because Isis involves many codes. That's why I have been connecting with the whole consciousness of Isis as the Ark of Isis, because it is merely referring to our origins as a human cosmic race. So this is the first video of other, perhaps 7, that I will be recording about the Ark of Isis, ordering it in different aspects of this code. Because as I have said in other videos, Isis as a galactic being, as a member of the galactic community at Atlantean times, is her name was not Isis, it was Auset. And the Isis name was given by the Greeks when they went to Egypt. Then a whole stage of human evolution initiated, and it's actually deeper than what we have been shown, what has been shown to us, because actually the Greek influence in all the information that we have now was, and to a big extent, determinant in our form of conceiving our reality and our relation to the divinity. So, and I will talk about this in a little bit. I just want to first focus in why I am dedicating this part 1, this first part, to the Gen Isis. And it's because we can, when we initiate something, it's most likely that we start in the beginning, or which also would be the last part, which is the beginning as well, because it's also all the things are interconnected. So, and this is what also connects us to the Omega. It's one of the codes related to the Omega, because at some point those two edges of the omega interconnect, and Inanna showed that to us when she's holding the omega as this artifact in one of her depictions. It, it's most likely that I will also be talking about her because some people actually even say that Isis and Inanna are the same being. And I won't go through that this video. Let's start. Let's begin in the most fundamental part, which is the genetics. Actually, that's where Gen Isis comes from, because when we go through to the book of creation in relation to these holy texts like the Bible, and well, in general, when they refer to that stage of creation by God conceiving everything that we can see today as reality, they call it the Genesis. And even though the word is not exactly the original, because it's not the original one, it's not Genesis, it's Gen Isis, which means the gen of Isis. And we will see this word Isis continuously in many like part of the suffix of words related to the origin or to very spiritual things. For instance, Pisces, as I have been saying in other videos, Pisces is not the last zodiac sign, it's the first one. If you want to know why I say this, you can take a look in my YouTube channel, my videos in my YouTube channel, because I talk about this a lot and I explain why. So also the epiphysis, which is the pituitary gland, the hypophysis, which is the pineal gland, also the parthenogenesis, which is a form of virginal conception. And here, from this moment on, is where precisely that concept of virgin, like the Virgin Mary, came from the parthenogenesis. And yes, it is related to the Parthenon in Athens, which I will be talking about later in relation to the Greeks. So the Gen Isis, why is it related to this galactic being that the Greeks named Isis? While her original name was Isis. I mean, Auset, I'm sorry. And it is because the frequency of the name Isis or Isis, it is like, if we go deep into the matrix, it has a numerical value, not only in relation to gematria. Also, there is another hidden code that is this symbol of the two pillars, which we can see in the tarot arcans, the 22 cards and the tarot. And when we see the priestess, we see that behind her she has two pillars. And these two pillars are embedded in the name Isis. And actually, the SS, because that's what the I represent, and the SS represent many things, because they are also some institutions were using the energy of this name to nourish them in order to because it's such a powerful frequency. We're talking about the primordial gen in the human being. So indirectly and inherently, every human is, unless or until he or she makes it, is aware of the situation, which you can detach from all this, then just by being human and having born human in this planet, you're like paying tax energetically to very specific institutions that anchored in the gen, and through all the construction of what the genesis is, a small percentage to fulfill the suppression and the let's say the slavery, to keep the unconscious mind going bigger, and for people not waking up. And this is related to SS, and we can see it in the secret space program, as also in relation to the name that the Nazis would use, SS. And actually, the connection goes into a very fundamental form, which is the pattern of the serpent, which is the fundamental pattern of every wave. Probably with a slight variation of the angle within each wave, yet it's the fundamental pattern. It's an S. So when we bring those two S's together, we are creating an 8, like the S's, like the yin yang. We flip them, we put them together, and it generates the 8, which is an infinite. And this infinite, in between the two pillars, when the two pillars fall and intercross, that fall in front of another, they generate an intersection, which is an X. That in that X in the center is it's shared with the 8 of the two S's which is mainly the two waves of energy coming together and creating an 8. It's a communion of two energies, yin and yang, masculine and feminine, and also in relation to the time, generating this on one side loop, and on another side it would be an fundamental cycle of the two divine forces coming together, the feminine and the masculine. And also we have it as a curve, and we have it as in a linear, like the two pillars. So we have it everywhere. So that's what the ISIS code mean, among many other things. But this is just like really bringing it into like unfolding the encryption that it has through the writing. That's why they chose ISIS. Now, when we see the part of the Genesis, then the Genesis, what it, as we know, 7 days of hard work and one day of rest, which is the seventh, which is mainly embedded in the 6 phases of the cube, like this incubation, this simulation reality. Yet the center, which is the 7th, gives us the capability to return to our center. And when we go to these holy books, when they talk about the myth of creation or the story of creation, how God created Adam and Eve, and also, of course, the 7 days and the 8 days, there are, for instance, ancient texts like the Kabbalah that they talk about, like if Eve had eaten the forbidden fruit on the 7th day and not the 6th, then everything would be okay. But as she ate it on the 6th day, then it was messed up. The plan. Which plan? Well, it is also said that the moment that Eve bit the forbidden fruit, she generated consciousness. So what does this mean? That throughout the process of creation of Adam and Eve, this genetic manipulation, the process of Eve's creation was faster than Adam. So then she came to life before they, and by they I mean the genetists, inserted a specific element in the brain that makes the form of perception different in between hemispheres, right and left, and also in between men and women. So, well, translating, because from a holofractographic reality, if our brain hemisphere perceives the reality differently from our left hemisphere, then that translates as the masculine and the feminine, and that as a man and a woman, because it's like the matrushkas, everything comes at a scale. So our form of perception defines our reality. So having said this, now why ISIS, why Auset is related to this? Well, I will be showing some images, some pictures. I just want to say that for you to see better what I'm talking about. Just as an intro, if you have ever been to Egypt, and if not, there are specific chambers in every temple called the Mamisis or Mamisis, which is Mother Isis. And in all these places, you will see the Hathors or Hathors, which are this feminine galactic being represented with horns, which that how they represent it, because that's also a confusion. Like when they represent Hathor, they represent her and they say it's a cow. It's different. Hathor is not a cow. Hathor is actually an aquatic being. If you see her ears, they're like fins. They are like it's even like a shell, and in the center sometimes you can even see the pearl. And the frequency of the Hathors is very water-like. So this is one, and the Hathor considered as this horned figure, like the one that I have behind me, those horns. This is related to a part of the brain, the olfactive conducts. When they rise, actually the pineal gland is just right in the center, it's interconnecting to the pituitary gland. So, well, actually in the base there is the pituitary gland, but it is actually quite aligned to the pineal gland, and then generating a disc of expansion in between these two, like from the resonance that you can generate from these two bodies, you can generate a disc. Why? Because in terms of manipulated reality, the pituitary gland is quite related too, because as we know, it generates the hormones, and the hormones are also quite related to influence the form of perception through the emotions. I won't go through this video. I will be talking about that in also another series of the videos that I'm making about control systems, because it's quite related to the amygdaloid body, which is in the area of the temple, and which is around the temple or lobe. It's a temple, and then that's why when you get all these devices of simulation reality like metaverse and so forth, they put it here because it's just emitting all the distortional waves directly to your amygdaloid body, and the amygdaloid body is the one related to to generate adrenaline. So therefore a lot of emotions, mostly related to inclined to fear. So anyway, when you protect the pituitary gland and your pineal gland through the olfactive conducts, which are quite connected to two parts in the back part and lower part of our brain, then you get to generate a stability within your form of perceiving reality through thoughts and emotions. Anyway, so that's I just wanted to clear out the title of Hathor, as most people talk about, because Hathor are beings that are quite related to the water, and they could achieve the horns, but they're not cows. That's something different. They could generate this pattern of the disc and the horns due to this field that I was telling, and then unfolding into the plasma body. She was not a cow. So, having said this, in the mimesis or mamisis, you have all these chambers where you will see a lot of female beings breastfeeding babies. And these babies are only men, no women, only men. Why? Because that is the parthenogenesis process. It's as an is a sexual form of production that you from a female can only be breathe a male, and I will explain why. Because imagine, I won't go too technical, like into the biological part, just so that you know, like, why am I saying this? Besides the remembrance that I have about all of this information, the memories. So when you take, for instance, you have a male, female being from the galactic community, like Auset or Isis, and she goes through the genetic process of conception in her. You can perceive this as literally placing her and then, like doing all this genetic interaction of taking her egg and then putting, like putting the male, it wouldn't be a sperm, it would be like that a gen, in order to generate all that symbiosis, and then all the process of cellular replication and so forth. Well, or you can take into consideration that these females from the galactic community, these female beings, would reach, well, that was in the beginning, actually, what I was saying about all that genetic intervention to create the first forms of humans. When Isis comes into the field, it gets a little bit different. Why? Because the purpose of human modification or human even creation was not anymore about just experimenting with a being in order to make it more advanced for whatever reasons, selfish, non-selfish, whatever. When Isis comes into the field, or Oset, there was already a higher level of consciousness that it's not that earlier it was a lower level of consciousness. It was just different. The purpose was different. I'm not saying slavery. I'm not saying anything. It was just different because there is also a lot of distortion regarding to that. Different forms of perception. But yet what I am saying is that Isis with Isis begins a stage of human, from producing the human, to enabling the reproduction within humans. That's the huge and remarkable difference in between all. Because let's say that the parthenogenesis started in a more organic way, which was not through genetic manipulation per se. It was through plasma um, initiation. Yes, there were involved technologies, of course, there were involved. The thing is that it had become more into a spiritual form. That's why they bring the Holy Spirit when they talk about the Virgin Mary and the conception. And that's also when they talk about Isis and the mutilation of Osiris by Seth, his brother, that Isis, when Osiris has no penis or no phallus, then comes Isis in the form of a bird, speaking of shape shifting, like what we were talking about yesterday with Susan. And she generates this alchemical process of plasma, etheric process of plasma, where she conceives auras. So I will explain that because that's also related to the chromosome X and Y. But I'm going to show some pictures because perhaps I'm going like too theoretical, and I know it might be too much information. Okay. So here we have this trinity, which is Isis. We can see the horns, we can see Osiris, and we can see Horus. I will make it bigger. Okay. Yeah, it's taking a little bit longer. Okay, there it is. There they are. Hi, everyone. Well, we can see that this trinity will also be related to to the Virgin Mary, Joseph, and Emmanuel, or Jesus, or Yeshua, because Mary goes through this virginal conception where the Holy Ghost comes to her and then she gets pregnant. Like Gabriel gives the message that she will be pregnant. And Gabriel is also related to the Muslim prophecies regarding to the Prophet Muhammad, when he gives to Muhammad, when Gabriel gives to Muhammad the rocks for the Kaaba. So there is a pattern in relation to Gabriel and the wings and the feather beings. We can see. We can go through galactic races, and we can also go into what does each do these beings, these feather beings, also represent, which is manipulating the gravity. We see a feather, and a feather flies beyond the gravitational field it takes. Yeah, it's influenced by the wind, it's influenced by whatever, yet it shows us the spectrum of the truth that is beyond, that literal connotation, which is, and also it's important for us to explore other information behind. So then we can see that the fact that she, like Isis, has the horns and which is a disc coming into an Aten, which is represents the spherical body activation, the plasma spherical body activation. She has her plasma body activated. That's why she's capable to generate that parthenogenesis, because she can handle her energy, her plasma energy, onto a way that she can influence directly her eggs and along with other devices that can actually generate a process of replication where the parthenogenesis talks about when a female divides her gametes, and then half of the gametes go to the her baby, which in this case is the masculine form. And actually, it's just half of the gametes that she will have. This is also related to the 23 ribs, which actually were 24, and which actually can tell us by this that there were 48. Because if we say that in that process of parthenogenesis, the mother has the double of gametes, that then the son, the offspring, will have half of it. And I want to see if I have, yeah, before I go this, I really, okay, yeah. Here's the asexual reproduction and the sexual reproduction. So here you have half of the information, and here you have the double. And it's quite obvious why only half of the information would come to the humans, because it was not the full potential of the galactic being. It was dormant through the mitochondria, because only the mitochondria is inherited. The genetic code of the mitochondria is inherited through mother to child, not from the father. Why? Because it's telling us that the galactic genetics came from Isis, and then it continued replicating from generation to generation until now. And also, not only that, yet that the mitochondria have part of their genes active. Most of them are dormant. Only 37 of them are active. We used to have 805 genes, and we have them. The thing is that they are dormant for most of people. So when you activate your 12th DNA strand, your 12 stranded DNA, then you are also enabling the process of activation of the dormant mitochondrion genes within you, which unfolds the full activation of your galactic DNA, which is also related to the introns in the DNA, what they called once the garbage DNA. It's actually the dormant DNA that can actually even be activated through the use of transposons. And I will just, and we can, hold on. And actually, we can achieve this like commanding our transposons to and retrotransposons to activate and awaken our dormant genes in a very specific way, which is what I show through the quantum hologenesis, which is all this process of neural full potential activation and brain at different extents and all the way up to the DNA. So because I explain also why ISIS and all these configurations that were done. So I'm going to just share now another image, which is okay. Yeah. If you have any questions, I'm going to check on the the chat in the YouTube. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Okay, so here we have, I want to, yeah, this is super beautiful. Okay, yeah, I think I will just wrap it up with the parthenogenesis process. I just wanted to like really make it clear that through the parthenogenesis, how would only could only a female being could conceive only a man, because in order to conceive a female, she would need to have to generate to multiply the same number of gametes to pass them to the female, because the man would only use half of them. So this is why it was only capable to conceive um, a male figure at that moment. And that's why, again, I'm sorry, and that's why in the book of creation, when because there are some books that say that God created men and women at the same time, and there are other versions where they say that God created Eve from the ribs of Adam, being 24 ribs, taking one away, 23 ribs, ergo 23 chromosomes. So in the beginning, there were 24 chromosomes, and the 24th is the one that was fusioned with the second chromosome, because there is like scientifically proof that our second chromosome was fusioned, was merged. So there it is reflected in the holy texts, in the ancient texts of the Genesis. So now, what would happen if through the process of parthenogenesis, which is the female being, galactic being, had 48 chromosomes, and then in order to create a male figure without sexual production, because they didn't want at that moment to procreate with another race, and they were actually throughout that process of bringing into life a being that could be a reflection of themselves, and also the communion of many races that would evolve so much, so much, that would achieve that fifth dimensional form of perception, and be the unification of the galaxy through their own blood. So then, let's say 24 chromosomes and the mitochondrial DNA, passing it right to their offsprings. Every Hathor mother, like, to say it somehow, because there were 7, every one of them would have offsprings, men, that would at some point would be free for reproducing themselves. So that's when they went into another process of genetics, and this was more of a process of genetics, because with the male form they had practiced it over and over and over again. When it came to the female, that was a challenge, to say it somehow, because it was the first test, and some people say that from that first test came Lilith, which was a hybrid, mostly connected to the galactic part than to the human part. And then came Eve. And also, before even Lilith, there was another one that some people even relate her to. This is very interesting. I have heard it, but it's important for me to mention it, because it's not the same name, but it's a form of Mamawati, which is mostly related to the water species. So those were for the first, let's say, like tests in the female. And then the third was breeded at the same time as the last Adam. And through that process, they were capable, of course, they were having by that time the same level of chromosomes. And also, something very important in addition to this, because that's where all the mythos of Electra and Edipo came from. It comes from the gods and goddesses having intercourse with their babies, which are the humans. And at some point, in order to create the first forms of Eves, there was this process of the mother having um, intercourse with. But just to be clear, I'm not talking about Isis. I'm talking about the other mothers. This was different. Isis is a code. Let's keep this very, very straight, you know. But there were other forms, of intercourse that actually would lead to more hybrid species, you know, like I was saying, like the one that they called Lilith and the one related to Mamawati, you know. So, but anyway, um, now, so to keep it, trying to keep it as simple as I can, then when in order to create Adam, like even the first forms of Adam, they needed to create another chromosome, not only an X. They needed to create it different. And this is what in the beginning generated the fact that they couldn't procreate between one another. Like, there were different reasons. One was due to they didn't want to have intercourse, like galactic beings with human beings. And then because only from the mother and the son, as there were no women, due to what I said, because they could only have men, you know, through the parthenogenesis process, they could only have men. So there was no women to have sex with. So then they would only have the mother to have sex with in order to have a female. And then the female, the daughter and the son, brother and sister, could have relationships and then continue the blood. And this is also very related why they would have those kind of marriages in that stage of human evolution, because that was the only way. Having intercourse in between brother and sister, you know, and then they could continue the bloodline. Or father and daughter, or, you know, it's most likely talk about father and daughter, or the daughter marrying the father, and so forth. But this is just talking about how they would reproduce. It was not, it was the mainly the main object, focus at that time, to preserve the bloodline. And sometimes it would involve genetic process, like technologically speaking, and other times it would involve more what we could consider today as spiritual ones, that the body would generate such a high level of plasma that these miracles could happen. Because it's not because I'm saying so. You can check online. There are actually processes of parthenogenesis happening right now. Abductions, perhaps. You know, it's miracles, perhaps. If we had that level of initiation processes where we accurately know how to use our body, then we would tend more. We can definitely tend more to generate those kind of miraculous processes. In the meantime, for most women, what they have gone through could possibly be abductions, what comes from that parthenogenesis, because now we can only see parthenogenesis in the bees and in some reptiles, which are also present in our DNA. So that's why I say it is doable for us to do that, generate such a high level of plasma within that we generate that dimple within the egg, and then start the process of replication, mitosis, and so forth. If not, then it requires from another being that has a high level of plasma influence within his electromagnetic field in order to generate that gestation process. And so, yeah, and again, this can involve also genetic processes through technology, or also through other levels of intimacy, where most of the hybrid gods or semi-gods came from. Not all of them, I must clarify. Generalizing would be, as well as with Isis, what I was saying with Isis. So what I want to explain about how the chromosome, because this is very important. I'm almost giving a lecture here. Well, I will check on if there is any question. So, for instance, if we go to the chromosome X, okay, we know that the fundamental pattern of every photon, of every particle of light, is an X. And I will start showing some. Okay. So, okay. Here we have Isis, okay? You see her crown, and you would say, what's that? Is that a throne? Yeah, if you have 1/4 of the picture. If you complete the fourths of the whole picture, of the full picture, you will have, imagine, multiplying this shape, the symbol, times 4, then we will get, interconnecting them through this angle, this edge, then we will have this, you see? Bum, bum. Okay, we have the chakana, which is the same shape of the omnivision key, how I call it, and the black hole in the center, which is where the origin from all form of life through the Planck plasma. So, and also we have the particle of light, and this is the when you draw a dark black dot, and if you put it through a specific color enhancements and decreasements, then you get this very same shape, which is talking to us that also the black is a particle of light. Again, alpha and omega, or omega communing the two edges. The end is the beginning, and the beginning is the end to another beginning, and so forth. So this is why I relate Isis to the particle of light and the Christic consciousness, which is what we currently know as Christianism and Catholicism and so forth, because they even replicated the image of the Virgin Mary through the figure of Isis through Virgin Mary, which actually was a priestess of Isis as well as Mary Magdalene. And we can see that also Osiris was kind of dead, as well as as well as Joseph, because Joseph barely appears in the scene. Like nobody talks about Joseph. He didn't even participated in the process of conception of the Virgin Mary. The thing is that Virgin Mary knew. She knew how to use the creative force, the Kundalini, how to bend her energy, and how to create plasma. So when the angel Gabriel comes to tell her, then to say this being, it was time to conceive through this plasma tech. And so she did. So what would be the correlation? What happened with Osiris? Well, Osiris, for the ones that don't know, Osiris was there were again, I'm sorry. There were 4 brothers, actually 5. They mostly talk about only 4, which is Isis, Osiris, Set, and Nephthys. We have 2 feminine and 2 masculine. Let's say that these are the positive poles and these are the negative poles. These 2, when all this process of creation of the human began, part of the encoded history of Set cutting into pieces, cutting Osiris into pieces, is that it shows how the human shall restore itself through the spaces. It's related to 14 pieces that are throughout the world, the earth, 14 places that are interconnected. And I will also be talking about this in another video. And it also talks about the 14 spaces in between the 13 joints that we have that enable the power of creation through the Baraka, which is the force of the physical body, of the soul body, and the spiritual body. And then when this brother Set cuts into pieces Osiris, twice he kills him. One, Osiris brings him back, which is also another code. I will be talking about this in another video. That when he talks about the second time and shredding him into pieces and throwing them through the Nile, it represents the interface of waters that interconnect the earth and also our physical body, which is the interface of our physical body, spaces interconnecting 13 specific points in which the control systems were anchored. Again, I will be talking about this in the other series of control systems. And they were energetically and holofractographically projected in those joints. So it's like the way you move. So anyway, that's why perhaps when someone is going through a process, it's like you cannot move. You feel like you cannot move. Perhaps, I don't know if you have felt that way. But anyway, when we are talking about the, like, Isis brings all the pieces of Osiris together except for one. And that one missing piece was the phallus. So if you have a particle of light crucified like Yeshua or Emmanuel, and you're missing one piece of that cross, what would it be? You have an X. You remove one of the legs and you get a Y, which is the Y chromosome. It's what it is encoding. And it was not lost. It was through a very specific process of genetics using gamma waves, the ones also using to generate the dimple in the egg through virginal conception from a genetical tech approach. This they would put so much energy in the centromere of the chromosome, which is the center of the X, gamma waves, pam, 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 that then one of the legs of the X compressed, generate this implosion. So it's there, it's dormant. That's why when Horus is conceived, Isis, as at the birth, goes and places herself in the golden palace of Osiris, which represents the origin, or which the etymology in Latin is light. It's also related to the gold. So, origin. So she places herself in the original palace, which is the golden conception, without like compulsion, pathologies, or merely survival mode pathologies. It's the most sacred form of conception through the plasma bodies within the masculine energy and female energy. I'm talking about energies, not about genders. So when it comes and generates through the plasma, through bending her energy, and she generates that dimple and gets pregnant. So with the new race, which is the modern advanced human, which is one of the most powerful races in the whole galaxy. Why? Because it's a communion of many galactic DNA, like from different species. So how we can activate it, I will be doing a show with Ryan, or how I love to call him Rion, about this DNA activation. And I also give online courses on this. If you're interested, you can write to me, and the email that I will leave in the description below. So it's a very easy way. As much as complex as this information might sound, actually the process of igniting progressively the DNA onto its full potential, it's very organic. Okay, so now moving on. Okay, I think I've covered most of it. I just want to show some. Oh yeah, the Greeks. Yeah, I remember now. Well, here we see this is the Isis knot, and this is a talisman. How archaeologists from the standard model refer to it as a talisman used to help the human that died through the process of enlightenment, for her or his soul leave the body. And of course, all of these have resonance. They were made with specific materials that would generate, and they would put a lot of energy and belief into it. So they would definitely be generating an electromagnetic field that would enhance the purpose of the person who would have just passed away, or the being. But this is also representing the capability to bend our energy. We can see here, this is an image of the RNA. I'm sorry, I was thinking in Spanish, the RNA, which is it is a sequence in our DNA that can encode proteins, yet cannot encode more complex information. Because, and actually, if we take a look at the proteins, they are the shape of a pentagon, which leads us to the 5-point star, which is the feminine. And we can see here this Debbie holding this scepter, which generates energy, which has the same shape of this dynamic RNA that is constantly being created in us while the DNA sequences are being replicated. And so this encode for proteins. And what are the proteins? Information. The information that is connecting us through a pentagonal form to the holographic reality, and therefore all the capabilities of the 5, what the 5 is capable to do, which is mostly a unique form of unifying the information at a very harmonious way. That's why it's also the correlation to the 5-dimensional form of perception, because I will tell you now more into a scientific approach to take a look at this. And here we see the aurora borealis, which is also the shape of the Isis knot. And if we ask ourselves what aurora borealis is, it's when the solar flares coming from, of course, the sun, which is a star, which is plasma, hits into the magnetosphere of the Earth magnetic field, and then generates this wavitudinal, this waves, this pattern of waves that are bending the energy in a non-symmetrical form. So that non-symmetrical form leaves a range to actually after interconnect these two. These two, we can see it's divided in these two into one, which is mainly talking about energetic current flow, and decompressing the field to generate stability. Otherwise, the Earth would go through a major hurting process. That's why it needs to release the energy through here in the bottom. So now, hold on, before going this, because that's a beautiful part. Okay. Yeah, here it is. Okay, I was talking about the 4 and the 5, the importance of the 5 and the pentagon. Okay, so here we have the tetragrammaton, which is a 5-pointed star, and yet it is talking about tetra, which is 4. Okay, why? Well, this is why, this cube. Because if we divide this cube into 4, we will have the 5 cube, which is the communion of this 5, which is actually this. We can see how we have one big cube and 4 interconnected through the center, which is the code 37, which is the code that leads to the octagon. And this also leads to the atom. So this is also the shape of the Vitruvius Man. Again, a fundamental pattern of ignition and of spinning. It's the way that the body can spin through the 5 dimensions. Well, it unifies it, as I was saying. That's why it's related to the spin, because the motion unifies. Otherwise, the static stage in a linear form of perception, or even 3D form of perception, it keeps isolation. Movement unifies because it's bringing all the information together. So anyway, yeah, We're just about to finish. Now, um, the Osiris diet or column, because it's important, Isis and Osiris. It is related to the vertebral column, yes, and it's also related to the axis, our axis, of course, the vertebral column, but it's also showing here, and Isis is holding it, the deviation of that axis from its original north all the way 23.5 degrees to the left, to the west, which is actually the axis of the heart. Here we can see it in this image, how it's exactly the same. So what is one quest that we have? Align our heart to the original north, true north. How? Through our plasma body activation. Only we can activate our plasma body when our heart is aligned to the true north. Otherwise, it would generate a fissure in our torus. And we couldn't double our torus into 440,000. Uh, I'm sorry, 1,440 degrees. So, having said this, if you want to know more about the house to reach um, the plasma body activation or expand the potential usage in your brain and translating into your level of intelligence, then you can contact me. This is capable for anyone to do. This is actually what is meant to be done. This is why, after all those genetic processes, like before, when when the Australopithecus and then the Homo Neanderthal and the Neanderthal and then the Homo Denisovan and Homo Erectus and so forth. When we're talking, for instance, about the Homo Denisovan, it was more related to Lemuria. They were highly intelligent beings. Yes, that is in our DNA, not this really primitive. And by primitive, I'm not talking about in terms of timing, like archaic. No, I'm talking about the despective usage of that word, because that's how they can actually express from humans, like a very limited forms of beings, which is not the case. We're actually very powerful beings. And our dormant DNA, we have the capability, we have chromosomes that are capable to heal, to generate auto healing from diseases that have been created. So it is important for us to activate our full dormant gens. We can do that, I was saying, through the transposons and retrotransposons. It is doable through the holofractographic field and using our plasma body. It's so important for us to honor this magnificent body, to use it, to benefit from it, and for it to benefit from us through being itself, its full potential. And those members of the galactic community believed so much in the human that some of them, with all of them, created the space for it to be capable to reproduce, because they knew what, as a race, humanity can do, which is improve the universe, make it better. And of course, there were other factions that don't think or feel the same way. So, for the ones who do think and that are holding the space for humans to open their wings and activate their plasma body, their full luminescence, and restore capabilities of regeneration, rejuvenation, unlimited energy, um, levitation, telepathy, telekinesis. So all of this is related to the plasma body. Even the constitution of laser is plasma at a very high scale. Like beams of light is electricity. It's the ether. And they erased it from the history and put it in a place of fun kids stories to sleep, to put them to sleep, because we were the kids. And we shall not be anymore in the teen stage. We shall mature into the stage that we occupy our place. Because when we occupy our place, when you join and occupy your place, we are generating the cosmic resonance that is needed to be undefeatable. So what would occupying your space would be committing to yourself, knowing who you are, using your body to connect with a higher dimensions, or more your fractals, enabling the multidimensional nature within you and all the benefits that come from it. That's why we are here for, right? To make the world a better place, the galaxy a better place. Even though we're just this point, this particle of sand in a beach, we have the power to make a difference if we believe so. And the galactic community, the ones that are holding the space for humanity, believe so. Do you? Thank you for watching this video. Liu kusukuli ikeda inauktu urukinik. Meiki akala uresihat aniyakta. Heka maikata. Hunu. Until next time.